Her son said, "She's basically done. Why waste resources?" Loud. In the chemo ward. Marie Callahan, 68, didn't respond. She memorized the sentence instead. By Friday, her will was rewritten. By Sunday, her heir was gone. Shawn thought she'd forget. Forgive. Fold. But Marie didn't waste pain. She documented it. And when he came crawling back, the signature line already belonged to someone else. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The chemo lounge smelled like sanitizer and microwaved soup. It wasn't unpleasant, just thin, sterile, a kind of muted waiting that had settled deep into the vinyl chairs and recycled air. Marie Callahan sat near the back, her IV line already taped gently to the inside of her arm, the slow drip of saline ticking a rhythm she didn't need to count. She wore a soft green sweater and carried the expression of someone who'd learned not to flinch. The chair beside her was empty. Shawn stood 10 feet away, too close to be invisible, too far to be useful. He was pacing, Bluetooth headset clipped to one ear, phone in the other hand. His sport coat looked expensive. His voice didn't. "I'm just saying, Trina, she's basically done," he said, not bothering to lower his volume. "Stage 2 or 3, whatever it is. Why are we wasting time and money flying back and forth every week?" A man across the room paused mid-sip from his styrofoam cup. An older woman 2 chairs down slowly folded her magazine closed. Marie didn't move. She kept her eyes forward, hands folded over her lap, 4 ticking on. Shawn kept going. Yeah, I know, optics, but you and I both know it's not like she's getting better." He turned his back toward her, like that made a difference. Marie inhaled once, long, slow, measured, and let it out without sound. A nurse stepped into view, young, poised, navy scrubs neatly pressed. Her name tag read, Nina Torres, RN. She didn't ask permission. She walked over, bent slightly toward Marie, and said quietly, "Let's get you somewhere a little more peaceful." Marie blinked once, then nodded. Nina unplugged the IV cart, expertly looping the line to prevent any pull, and began to roll it toward the small private nook near the window, normally reserved for patients needing extra monitoring. They passed Shawn as they walked by. He didn't notice. Nina settled Marie into the new recliner, adjusted the pillow, then sat across from her on a low stool. Marie looked out the window. The clouds hung low that day, soft, like forgiveness, or maybe just a delay. "That's my son," she said, her voice barely a thread. Nina tilted her head. "I won't forget that," she said gently. "You shouldn't either." Marie's lips pressed together, but she didn't respond. 10 minutes passed. The drip continued. A soft breeze tapped the window once. Then Marie's phone buzzed. One short vibration. "Shawn. Hope today went smooth." She stared at it for 3 full seconds, then turned the phone face down on the tray. She picked up the paperback she'd brought, The Old Man and the Sea. She'd read it before. She wasn't reading it now. Not yet. Nina returned a few minutes later with a warm blanket and a ginger candy, unwrapped and placed quietly on a tissue. "Let me know if you want to talk," she said. Marie didn't say thank you. She simply took the candy, rested it on her tongue, and closed her eyes. Some things didn't need to be said. Others would be. Soon. The key clicked gently in the front door. Marie stepped inside her small colonial, flicking on the hallway lamp instead of the overhead. The light was warmer that way, low, amber, easy on the eyes. She slipped off her shoes, set her bag down by the coat rack, and paused. Silence. Not the empty kind, the deliberate kind. She walked into the den, past the old upright piano no one had touched in 5 years, and into the spare bedroom she'd converted into a home office. The desk sat by the window, neat but lived in. Bills filed, notepads stacked, a ceramic cup of pens that hadn't run dry. Marie reached for the bottom drawer and slid it open. Inside, wrapped in a single sheet of craft paper, was the folder. She pulled it out gently. The label was handwritten in red ink, all caps. Personal control. She sat down, centered it on the desk, and opened it. The contents were precise. A copy of her living trust, the deed to the house, her investment statements, and the most recent draft of her will. She spread them across the desk like she was setting a table, orderly, intentional. Shawn's name was on every line that mattered: primary heir, successor trustee, healthcare proxy. She stared at the line under beneficiaries, her eyes tracing the familiar spelling of her son's name. Then her gaze drifted to the empty signature lines at the bottom. She hadn't signed it. Not yet. Marie leaned back, hands folded in her lap. She watched the curtain ripple slightly at the window as a breeze moved through the maple out. Sighed. The branches flicked shadows across the papers, like movement, like warning. After a moment, she reached for her phone and scrolled to a contact saved under Derek Barnes, Atterver. She tapped call. It rang once. "Marie," Derek's voice answered, calm and grounded. "I'd like to come in," she said, her voice clear. "It's time." A pause. Then, "Friday?" "That'll do." She ended the call and set the phone down beside the folder. Her hand rested lightly on the cover, fingertips grazing the edge as if sealing something unspoken. She didn't cry. She didn't pour wine. She didn't write a note or post a cryptic message. She just sat there, alone in the quiet house, her body still sore from treatment, her arms still bearing the faint tape mark from the IV, and she let herself feel the weight of what she already knew. She wasn't dying. Not yet. But she was done giving things away just because people assumed they'd earned them. She closed the folder, smoothed the cover once, and slipped it back into the drawer. Not hidden. Just waiting. Derek's office sat above a hardware store on Main. 2 flights up, no elevator. Marie took them slowly, one hand on the banister, the other clutching the craft paper folder like it might evaporate if loosened. By the time she reached the door, marked Derek Barnes, Esquire. Estate and family planning. Her breath was measured, not strained. She knocked twice and walked in. Derek looked up from his desk, reading glasses perched at the tip of his nose, tie loose but still knotted. The room smelled like dust, lemon polish, and the faint whir of the space heater under the window. "Marie," he said, rising. "You look good." She raised an eyebrow. "Don't lie before we've even signed anything." He smiled and gestured to the chair across from him. "Come on, then. What are we rewriting?" Marie sat down, set the folder between them, and opened it without hesitation. "I want to start over," she said. "All of it. Every document, every assumption." Derek blinked once, then leaned forward, thumbing through the pages. "You sure?" he asked, flipping to the trust document. "I'm not impulsive, Derek. You've known me 20 years. This isn't a tantrum. It's a transfer." She said it the way someone says the weather changed, or the tea's ready. Fact, not fury. Derek nodded slowly. "Okay, let's take it piece by piece." They worked in rhythm, an old dance. Marie removed Shawn from the primary trust. No executor rights, no financial interest. She instructed Derek to leave him a ceremonial $5 bequest, in acknowledgement of lineage and nothing more. Derek looked up from the keyboard. "That'll sting." "It's supposed to," she replied, "but not for long. He'll get over it faster than he wants anyone to believe." Then came the successor roles. "Nina Torres," Marie said, tapping her pen on the page. "RN, full name. I want her executor of the caregiver fund, successor trustee on the charitable account." Derek frowned slightly. "Your nurse?" "My witness, my reminder, my friend, even if she doesn't know it yet." He paused, his fingers hovering over the keys. "Marie, this is going to raise eyebrows. If Shawn contests—" "He can contest from the sidewalk," she interrupted, voice steady. "The paper's the paper. He can't unsign what he never signed in the first place." They worked another hour. The new trust, a revised will, the updated designation forms. Marie rejected boilerplate language in favor of her own. No family member shall claim stewardship of what they did not nurture. Derek finally leaned back, pinched the bridge of his nose, and smiled in spite of himself. "You've got more than enough time and power to do this." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm not wasting either." He reached for the notary stamp. "Last chance. You still want to go through with cutting Shawn out completely?" Marie looked him straight in the eye. I'm not cutting him out, she said. I'm just stopping the assumption that he belongs at the center. He nodded, pressed the stamp firm to the page, and passed her the pen. She signed. The ink bled clean and smooth into the line. Dead sure? Derek asked. Marie capped the pen. That's the only kind of sure that matters. Marie's phone lit up at 7:08 a.m. on Saturday. One text, no emojis, no punctuation. Shawn, hope you're doing better. Let's do brunch Sunday? She read it once, then again. The timing was obvious. The subtext, even more so. She typed back, Marie, sure, come by the house. Noon. No flourish, no warmth, just coordinates. Then she stood from the kitchen table, walked to the printer, and selected Print 1 copy on the newly finalized trust document. The machine hummed quietly, spitting out the pages like receipts from a bet already won. By 10:30 that morning, the good china was out. Not the floral porcelain, the heavier set, deep cobalt with gold edges, formal, unapologetic, plates that said, "You're not here for comfort, you're here for clarity." She laid them out with precision. Napkins folded sharp, water glasses full of lemon slices, forks placed left, no shortcuts. At 11 o'clock sharp, Nina arrived in a light cardigan and jeans. Her eyes scanned the table. Company? Marie gave a sly smile. Family. Nina raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. Would you mind helping with the deviled eggs? Marie asked, gesturing toward the tray. As they worked side by side, hands moving in sync, Nina glanced up. You look lighter. Marie paused, ran a finger along the edge of the platter. Nothing lightens a person like trimming the dead weight. Nina smiled, then sobered. You don't have to do this for my sake. I'm not, Marie said, but I'm glad you'll be here when I do. At 11:40, Monica arrived, breezing through the back door with a bottle of sparkling cider and her signature floral perfume trailing behind her. Did I miss the fireworks? She asked, eyes twinkling. Not yet, Marie replied, but the fuse is set. 12 noon came with a knock. Shawn entered first, wearing a crisp button-down that didn't suit him. Trina followed in soft neutrals and a too-wide smile. Marie greeted them with practiced warmth. Not cold, not false, just filtered. Sit, she said. Food's ready. Shawn looked around. His eyes landed on the table, the china, the two guests. He hesitated. Didn't know we'd have company. Of course not, Marie said smoothly, handing him a plate. You never ask. Trina sat stiffly. Everything smells wonderful, Marie. So glad you're feeling more like yourself. I am, she said, pouring water for everyone. Turns out Clarity agrees with me. They ate for a few minutes in silence, chewing, cutting, pretending. Then, as the plates cleared, Marie stood and walked calmly to her office. When she returned, she carried a single manila envelope. She set it on the table directly in front of Shawn. He blinked. What's this? Just brunch reading, she said, sitting down. He opened it. The trust documents unfolded neatly in his hands. His eyes scanned the lines. Faster, then slower. He laughed. Short, sharp. This is a joke, right? Marie looked him square in the face. No, Shawn. The joke happened last Tuesday. In the Chemo lounge, remember? His smile vanished. You said I was done. I decided who would benefit from that assumption. Trina paled. Monica smirked. Nina reached for the pitcher of water and poured herself a second glass. Shawn stood abruptly. You're cutting your own son out of everything? I'm adjusting the balance sheet, Marie replied. You made the deposit. I'm issuing the receipt. For a few seconds, no one moved. The room held its breath. China gleaming under the afternoon sun, condensation sliding down untouched glasses, and Marie sitting still as granite while Shawn reread the front page of the trust packet. Trina was the first to break the silence. Well, she said, smiling too tightly, I'm sure there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I mean, no one rewrites their entire estate over one comment, right? Her tone tried for lightness. It landed like fog. Marie leaned back slightly in her chair. No misunderstanding, just correction. Shawn dropped the packet onto the table like it had burned him. You left me $5. In acknowledgement of lineage, Marie said. You can't be serious. I'm not joking. Trina reached for her water, hands shaking slightly. I think we should all just take a breath, maybe go back to what really matters here. Your health, your legacy. I am, Marie replied. This is my legacy, thoughtfully reallocated. Not to who shouted the loudest, but to who showed up when it mattered. Shawn's mouth opened, but Monica cut in before he could speak. You mean like the nurse who moved her to a quiet chair when her own son humiliated her in public? Trina turned sharply. Excuse me? You heard me, Monica said, sipping her cider. Don't worry, I'm just a guest, but I come with receipts. Shawn leaned forward. You think this is fair? No, Marie said. Fair is a playground word. This is legal. He shoved his chair back, standing fully now, fists balled. I was upset. It was a bad day. Marie stood too, slow, deliberate, not flinching even as her body reminded her it had limits. You said I was basically done, in a chemo ward, with my IV still in. That's not what I meant. It's what you said. Nina didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her presence was a silent endorsement. Shawn glanced around the table, eyes darting like someone looking for an escape hatch that didn't exist. So what? He barked. You're just giving everything to strangers. No, Marie said calmly. I'm giving it to people who didn't leave when I became inconvenient. He scoffed. You're punishing me for a single moment. You built a whole personality on that moment, she replied. I just finally recognized the architecture. Trina reached for her purse. Let's go, Shawn. This isn't brunch, it's theater. Marie's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You wanted arrangements, she said. Consider them arranged. Shawn stared at her, jaw set like a hinge about to break. Then, under his breath, he muttered, You'll regret this. Marie didn't blink. No, Shawn, I've already regretted what I let go unspoken. This is relief. He turned on his heel and Trina followed, the front door closing too softly for the chaos they carried with them. For a beat, no one said anything. Then Monica leaned back in her chair, raised her glass and said, Well, that went better than I expected. Nina laughed softly, nervous, proud, almost reverent. Marie reached for the packet, folded it carefully, and placed it back in the envelope. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just felt something return. Something clean. The slam of the car door echoed down the quiet street like an exclamation point Marie never needed to write herself. Through the window, she watched Shawn and Trina pull out of the driveway in tight-lipped silence, the SUV's polished body catching the midday sun like it resented the glare. Inside, the house exhaled. Monica stood first, refilling her water like it was a cocktail toast. Then she turned, leaned one hip against the counter, and began to clap, slow, deliberate, the kind of applause that didn't ask for permission. Well, she said, her voice edged with admiration, that was overdue by about a decade. Marie gave a half smile, then sat back in her chair. She could feel her spine settling into something new, not collapse, just alignment. Nina crossed the room quietly and knelt beside her chair, her hand finding Marie's in a firm, steady grip. I'm proud of you, she said. No fanfare, no pity, just truth. Marie squeezed back once. Thank you for being here. Nina stood, smoothing her cardigan, eyes briefly glassy. Where else would I be? The room stayed quiet. No one rushed to clean up. No one reached for the plates. The mess could wait. The moment couldn't. Marie eventually rose, walked to her office, and opened her laptop. The screen glowed gently as she typed 3 words into a blank email. Subject Stage 1 complete. To Derek Barnes. Message, documents delivered, no incident, clarity achieved. She clicked send. That evening, the leftover deviled eggs went into the compost bin. Monica insisted on helping load the dishwasher, but Marie waved her off. I want to do it, she said. You sure? Yeah, Marie said, pausing with a plate in her hand. I need the sound of something rinsing clean. Monica smiled and stepped back. Just don't start polishing the silver. It'll feel like a metaphor. The next morning, Marie walked the block. It wasn't dramatic. Just a slow pass from corner to corner, cardigan buttoned, shoes soft against the pavement. A few neighbors waved, some a little too brightly, some pretending to prune hedges while watching from the corners of their eyes. Marie didn't mind. Gossip was a kind of wind. You could fight it, or you could plant wind chimes and let it play its own music. She made it back to the house just before the mail truck passed. Inside her inbox, a voicemail from Shawn. She didn't open it. She deleted it with the same care she might dust off a picture frame. Gentle, firm, final. By mid-afternoon, the house had returned to its original stillness. Dishes clean, email sent, sunlight stretching across the hardwood floors. Marie sat at the kitchen table again. This time, no folder in sight, no plan that needed hatching, just a notepad in front of her and a pen uncapped beside it. She wrote one line at the top of the page, "Things I will never apologize for." She stared at it for a beat, then underlined it. Twice. The radiology wing always seemed colder than the rest of the hospital, not because of the temperature, but because of the way sound behaved inside it. Thin, clipped, flattened against the tile floors and beige walls. Marie walked through the automatic doors alone, her jacket folded neatly over her arm, her appointment card already tucked into the front pocket of her wallet. No escort this time, no polite small talk, just the slow shuffle of her shoes on linoleum and the soft buzz of fluorescent lighting. At the check-in desk, the receptionist greeted her with a practiced smile and a clipboard. Marie filled out the standard form without hesitation, her handwriting as controlled and legible as ever. Date of birth. Any new symptoms? Have you experienced weight loss since your last scan? She answered each question with quiet precision, then returned the clipboard and took a seat in the small waiting alcove tucked beside the elevators. She didn't bring a book. She didn't check her phone. She simply sat, hands folded, eyes focused on nothing in particular, as if letting her body be still was an act of strength in itself. After 10 minutes, a door opened across the hall and Nurse Nina stepped out. Her presence was immediate but never abrupt, just enough to draw attention without commanding it. She wore the same navy scrubs and white sneakers, her hair pulled back into a low twist and her badge lanyard slightly frayed at the edge. When she saw Marie, she smiled, not out of obligation, but in recognition. "I didn't know you'd be assigned here today," Marie said softly as they met at the threshold. "I requested it when I saw your name on the docket," Nina replied, guiding her gently through the door. "Figured I'd walk the strongest woman in this place to her scan myself." Marie let out a breath that could have been a laugh, or maybe just the tension easing from her chest. "I hope that's not a title that comes with a crown." "No crown," Nina said, "just the kind of weight no one sees unless they're holding it too." They moved together down a narrow hallway, passing framed watercolor paintings of trees in different seasons: spring, summer, fall, no winter. Inside the prep room, Marie slipped into the gown, folded her clothes on the small chair, and lay down as instructed. Nina adjusted the blanket over her knees and clipped the final line into the machine's intake port. Her fingers worked calmly, efficiently, but her eyes met Marie's with quiet certainty. "You know the drill," Nina said gently. "Breathe easy. Stay still. 25 minutes, and I'll be right outside the entire time." Marie nodded, lips pressed together. "I'm ready." The machine whirred to life, its slow mechanical breath rising as the table shifted into place. As the tunnel of the PET scanner surrounded her, Marie let her eyelids fall closed. The buzz and hum of the imaging process filled her ears, low and rhythmic, like a distant engine on a long road. She counted her breaths, not as a way to measure time, but to steady herself against the noise of memory. One breath for her first appointment, one for the day she lost her hair, one for the afternoon Shawn said she was basically done. She opened her eyes to the sterile white curve of the machine's interior. Her voice, barely audible over the hum, whispered into the shell around her, "I'm not done. Not yet." When the scan finished, Nina returned with a warm cloth and a small bottle of water. Marie sat up slowly, not dizzy, just aware of her body's quiet fatigue. She dressed again without help and followed Nina back out into the hallway, where the light felt just a touch softer than before. At home that evening, she sat at her desk with her notepad open, the same one she'd begun using after revising the trust. Her pen moved steadily across the paper as she wrote, "If I've got a year, I'll make it felt. If I've got 6 months, I'll make it known. If I've got less, I'll make it count." She didn't sign it. It wasn't a declaration. It was a plan, and she had no intention of wasting any of it. It was raining the morning Nina called. Soft, steady, the kind of rain that didn't demand shelter so much as permission to pause. Marie had just opened the curtains in the kitchen when the phone rang. She didn't rush to answer. She let it ring twice, then picked up on the third, tucking it between her shoulder and ear while she poured hot water over her tea bag. "Hello? It's Nina," came the familiar voice, low and warm. "You home?" "I am." "Got a few minutes?" Marie sat at the table, her hand closing gently around the mug. "Plenty." There was a short breath on the other end of the line, less hesitation, more reverence. "The scan looks good, Marie. Really good. No new spread. No lymph activity. The team's calling it early-stage remission." Marie didn't speak. She closed her eyes and let the words settle, not with disbelief, but with something softer. She reached for the windowsill and steadied herself. "You still with me?" Nina asked. Marie nodded once, then remembered the phone. Yes, I am." Nina's tone didn't shift to celebration. She didn't offer platitudes. Just a simple, "Thought you'd like to hear it from someone who meant it." "Thank you," Marie whispered. And she meant that too. She told Monica first. Not over text. Not on the phone. She waited until they crossed paths in the driveway later that afternoon, both bundled in cardigans and carrying grocery bags from their respective errands. "I got the call," Marie said, as casually as if she were reporting the weather. "They're using the word remission." Monica's bag hit the hood of her car a little too fast, sending apples tumbling toward the curb. She caught one, barely, then laughed and cried at the same time. "Well then," she said, wiping her cheek with the back of her sleeve, "I guess we don't have to make funeral playlists just yet." Marie chuckled softly and opened her arms. Monica folded into her, tight and full of something that had waited too long. "I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath," Monica said into her shoulder. Marie smiled. "I didn't realize how good it would feel to exhale." That night, she sat on the porch under the awning, watching the rain retreat into steam as the sun began to push back through the clouds. She brought her notepad again, this time not the one for legal matters, but the one with blue-lined pages and a floral cover. At the top, she wrote, "Things I'm doing while they watch me die and wonder how I'm still here." Below it, in neat lines, "New walking shoes, the good kind, not the ones on sale. A laptop that doesn't freeze when I open more than 2 tabs. A letter to Lily for her 18th birthday. One bold outfit, a window box of mint, something reckless, undecided." She capped the pen, then reopened it and added, "A second lease on Grace, just for me." The next day, she walked into the small electronics store on Elm Street. The clerk offered help. She declined. She tested 3 keyboards until she found one with just enough resistance to feel like intent. She paid in cash. On the way home, she stopped at the shoe store and tried on 4 pairs. The 5th fit like something that didn't just belong, but waited. Back home, she brewed a second cup of tea, opened the laptop, and created a new folder on the desktop. Letters for Lily. The cursor blinked in the blank document. She started typing, "Dear Lily, I know this might be a strange thing to receive from a woman who was mostly kept at arm's length from you, but I hope this letter finds you not confused, but curious. Because I have things to tell you, things your father may not share, things about strength, about silence, about choosing to begin again." She paused there, then hit save. There would be more. So much more. Outside, the clouds broke open into clean light. Marie sat back, ankles crossed, and looked through the window like she hadn't in a long time, not for weather or answers, but for possibility. She wasn't done. She had finally been given the time. Now she intended to use every ounce of it. Marie heard the knock before she saw the car. 3 firm taps on the screen door, intentional, not loud. When she opened it, Shawn stood on the porch in slacks and a windbreaker, hands in his pockets like a schoolboy waiting outside the principal's office. She said nothing. just stepped back and let him in. The living room looked the same as always. Framed bird prints, a crocheted throw over the couch, a faint trace of lemon polish lingering in the air. But something had shifted. Marie could feel it in the way the rug settled under her feet, how the light cut differently across the armchair. Shawn lingered near the entryway before finally stepping forward. He didn't sit. "I was upset," he began. "We were shocked. But you're better now." Marie raised an eyebrow. That's a sentence with a lot of subtext for someone who once said I was basically done. Shawn exhaled through his nose. "I know. And I said it badly. We didn't mean it the way it sounded." "No," she said. "You meant it exactly the way it sounded. You just didn't expect me to hear it." He looked down, then up again, his voice dropping to something close to earnest. "I'm here because I want to make it right." Marie moved slowly to the sideboard and poured herself a glass of water. She didn't offer him one. "You're here because you think I'll reopen the trust." "That's not—" She cut him off with a glance. "Shawn." He stopped, the way people stop when they remember they're not in charge of the room. There was a silence between them. Not hostile, just final. Then he tried again, softer this time. "She's your granddaughter, too." Marie set the water down without drinking it. She walked to the bookshelf, opened a small drawer near the bottom, and pulled out a sealed envelope. Thick paper, handwritten name across the front. Lily Callahan. She crossed the room and held it out. Shawn didn't take it right away. "What is it?" "A letter," Marie said. "You'll give it to her when she turns 18. He blinked. "Why not give it to her now?" "Because she's still under your roof, and I don't trust your ability to let her read it without editorializing." Shawn's mouth tightened. Marie continued. "It's not about money. It's not about property. It's about story. Her right to know mine." He took the envelope finally, but didn't look down at it. "She loves you, you know." Marie nodded once. "That's why I wrote her the truth, not the version filtered through your discomfort." He turned toward the door. Paused. "You don't want reconciliation?" "I want respect," Marie replied. "And since we've already seen how you act when you think I'm weak, I'd rather not test how you behave when you think I owe you grace." He looked like he might say something else, some final retort, some half-grown apology. But his lips parted and never finished forming a word. She stepped past him, opened the door wide. The breeze rolled in, soft and cool against the back of her neck. "Goodbye, Shawn." He hesitated, then stepped through. The door closed behind him, not a slam, just the sound of separation, the sound of history choosing where it ends. Marie stood still for a moment, her hand resting lightly on the knob. Outside, Shawn climbed into his car and sat there for a long time before starting the engine. Inside, Marie walked to her desk. Her notebook waited, open, a clean page ready. She wrote in slow, deliberate strokes. "I used to think survival meant letting people come back. Now I know survival means choosing who stays out." She set down the pen and smiled, not with triumph, but with truth. The time she had left wasn't about healing old wounds. It was about planting new roots. And no one who had once called her a waste of resources would be allowed to water them. The smell of disinfectant had stopped bothering Marie weeks ago. She stood beside Nina at the main volunteer desk on the 3rd floor, sorting hand creams and peppermint tea packets into small linen bags. There were dozens of them lined up now, each tied with a satin ribbon, each with a handwritten card tucked inside, for the ones who stay. Marie had written every single note herself. "This is beautiful," Nina said, holding one up to admire it. "You don't have to go this far." Marie didn't look up from the basket she was arranging. That's the point. No one ever has to, but someone should. They'd been coming in every Tuesday and Friday, not for treatment, for presence. Nina handled the schedules. Marie handled the details, the kind that made a caregiver stop and feel human for one full minute in a place designed to make them invisible. There was no press release, no sponsor logo, just Marie's trust funds, dispersed discreetly through Derek's office, covering the cost of every blanket, every granola bar, every tiny gesture that said, "I see you too." The word spread quietly through the wings, By the end of the month, the nurses were calling them the 2 M's. Monica, of course, noticed first. "You're humming again," she said one morning as they strolled down the sidewalk, coffee cups in hand. "Am I? And you haven't cleaned out the spice cabinet in over a week, which tells me you're finally thinking about something other than control." Marie chuckled softly, then sipped her coffee. "I'm thinking about Vermont." Monica stopped mid-step. "Wait, you're actually considering it?" "I booked the train last night," Marie said, eyes twinkling. 3 nights. Just enough to remember what trees look like when they're not framed in waiting room windows. Monica threw her free hand in the air. "Well, hallelujah, and pass the flannel." In the weeks leading up to the trip, Marie found herself reaching for yarn again. The skeins had been packed away in the linen closet, untouched for years. But her fingers remembered. The rhythm returned without drama, needle in, loop through, pull, repeat. She started with soft pastels, something soothing. By the 3rd blanket, she'd moved on to bright reds and deep greens, bold colors that didn't whisper. These weren't for her. They were for the pediatric ward. "Are you sure the kids will want them?" she asked Nina one morning. Nina grinned. "Marie, they'll fight over them." One afternoon, after a delivery run to the hospital, Nina handed her an envelope that had been left at the front desk. It was pink, crayon written, folded 6 times. Marie opened it carefully. Inside was a drawing of a stick figure in a hospital room, wearing a cape, arms wide. Above it, Nana Marie, strongest woman. There was a note on the back. "Thank you for the blanket. It made me feel less itchy. Love, Maya." Marie held the paper in both hands, pressing her fingers gently to the crease where it had been folded. She didn't cry. She didn't have to. Some gifts were big enough to just hold quietly. That night, she opened a fresh document on her laptop. Title: Measured Doses. Subtitle: Short Chapters on How to Stay Alive, Even When You're Supposed to Be Dying. She started typing, not an autobiography, not a survival memoir, just a series of reflections, some short, some sharp, each one written as if the person reading it was carrying something breakable in their chest. It wasn't for Shawn. It wasn't even for Lily. It was for the strangers, the overlooked, the ones who knew exactly what it felt like to sit at the edge of the hospital bed while someone asked about arrangements. It was for the ones still choosing to get up anyway. She finished the first page, then closed the laptop and set her hands gently in her lap. Outside, the sky turned a shade of dusk that didn't ask for attention. It just arrived, steady and certain. Marie didn't know how long she had, but she knew exactly what she would do with it. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like time was slipping. She felt like it was being returned. The folding chairs were already half filled when Marie stepped onto the small stage at the Community Wellness Center. The walls were buttercream yellow, scuffed in places, the carpet a dull blue-gray that held the weight of hundreds of small events before this one. There was no podium, just a single mic on a short black stand and a pitcher of water on the side table. Simple, honest, no performance. 30 people sat in front of her, nurses in scrubs, daughters with notebooks, an older man holding a framed photo of someone not there anymore, caregivers, the invisible net holding so much weight. Marie adjusted the microphone with both hands and took a small step forward. "I used to think caregiving was something we did quietly," she began, her voice even, unhurried. "I believed dignity was found in staying small, in not making noise, until I realized that silence isn't always noble. Sometimes it's just permission for people to forget you were ever there." The room didn't stir. No fidgeting, no phones, just stillness and listening. The kind earned, not expected. She went on. "I wasn't always the one being cared for, but when I became her, when the drip line ran and the lights buzzed overhead and people whispered in the corners like I couldn't hear them," she paused. "That's when I learned that survival has 2 forms, the physical and the one that decides whether your name still means something afterward." There was a murmur of agreement, just the smallest shift of shoulders, a glance exchanged, a sharp inhale from the second row. Marie told them about the hospital chair, about the nurse who moved her without asking for permission, about how that moment became the hinge between endurance and agency. "I didn't change my will out of anger," she said. "I changed it because legacy should never be confused with guilt." When she finished, there was no applause for a full second. Then it came, first a few hands, then all at once, not thunderous, but full, withstanding. The kind of clapping that felt like something being sewn back together. Marie stepped away from the mic without bowing. She wasn't a performer, she was a witness. Afterward, a woman in her 60s approached and asked quietly if Marie would be willing to write for the Northeast Journal of Family Care. "We're doing a special issue on redefining dignity," she said. "You've already written the theme with your breath." Marie gave her email, thanked her, and walked to the back where Nina and Monica waited near the coffee urn. Monica had tears in her eyes, but refused to wipe them. "You made people sit up straight in their souls," she said. Marie only smiled. The next day, the video made it online, posted by a local volunteer who'd filmed most of her talk on a phone. Within hours, it had a few hundred views. By dinner, several thousand. By the weekend, a clip with captions, Marie, at the mic, saying legacy should never be confused with guilt, had been shared on a popular caregiving subreddit. It made its way to Shawn's feed late Sunday evening. He watched the first 45 seconds in silence. Then he opened the comment box, typed, "This is one side of the story. People forget what came before." He stared at it, then deleted it, then typed another. "Sometimes parents rewrite the past to make the ending prettier." That one, he posted. Within minutes, it was downvoted. Hard. A reply followed quickly. "Sometimes silence is earned. Let her keep it." Another said, "She didn't name you. That's what stings, huh?" He closed the browser and said nothing. Meanwhile, Marie sat on her porch with a mug of peppermint tea and her new laptop resting warm on her thighs. The screen glowed faintly in the evening light. She wasn't reading the comments. Monica had warned her not to. She wasn't rewatching her own video. Nina had already told her it landed exactly right. She was typing. Chapter 5. The day I became a line item and decided to rewrite the ledger. Her fingers moved slower than before, but without hesitation. Inside the house, her phone buzzed once. She didn't check it, because the thing about choosing who you speak for, once you've made peace with who you don't, is that you don't flinch when they try to speak over you. The website went live at 8:02 a.m. on a Thursday. Marie watched it load on her screen, slow at first, then whole. A clean, uncluttered homepage with soft navy text on a white background. At the top, the Quiet Backbone Fund, and beneath it, in a serif font she had chosen herself, because those who hold us up deserve more than silence. She sat back in her chair and let the moment settle. No ribbon cutting, no inbox blast, just presence. Nina arrived an hour later with 2 coffees and a clipboard. She set both down on the table and leaned over Marie's shoulder to look at the screen. "It's real," Nina said, her voice threaded with something close to reverence. Marie nodded once. "Feels like it." They had worked on it for months, drafting the mission statement, outlining eligibility for microgrants, deciding how applications would be vetted. Simple amounts, just enough to cover a month's groceries or a lost shift. No red tape, no humiliation, just help. Nina handled the intake. Marie reviewed the applications personally. And when it came time to list titles, Marie refused founder and instead wrote co-director. Still learning. By the following week, the first 5 grants were sent, one to a woman in Syracuse who'd left her job to care for her husband after a stroke, one to a teenager helping his grandmother after school while their parents worked double shifts. Each recipient received a handwritten note on thick cardstock, signed simply, "May this remind you that your presence is not invisible." The podcast was Monica's idea. "You've got the voice," she said, pushing a condenser mic across the table with the same energy most people saved for birthday gifts. "And people want more of what you said that day. They just don't know how to ask." Marie was skeptical at first. "I'm not a broadcaster." "You're a storyteller with receipts," Monica said. "Let the rest follow." So they cleared out the sunroom and turned it into a recording space, curtains pulled for sound, a secondhand laptop with just enough RAM to run the editing software, a coaster for Marie's tea. The first episode took 3 takes, not because she couldn't find the words, but because her voice kept cracking in the quiet. Eventually she hit record, leaned in close to the mic and said, "Welcome to the quiet backbone, a space for caregivers, the unseen, the ones who didn't choose the job but never stopped doing it. Today's episode is called You're Not a Burden, because that's the lie we're most often asked to swallow, and I'm here to spit it out." She read from a page, but the cadence belonged to her, measured, clear, like a bell rung indoors. When it was done, Monica mixed the audio, added the soft piano intro, and uploaded it at midnight. Nina posted the link in the hospital's private caregiver forum and again in the weekly internal newsletter. By morning, Marie's inbox was overflowing. Subject: Your voice gave me breath. Subject: My sister cried when I played this for her. She said it was the first time she felt understood. Subject: You just said everything I've been too tired to explain. Some messages were one sentence, some were pages long. One included a photo of a folded laundry pile and a baby asleep on a couch, with the note, "Listening to you while I do the invisible things." Marie didn't try to respond to all of them. Instead, she created a new folder titled Anchor Letters. Then she opened a blank document for her next episode. That afternoon, she stepped out onto the porch, wrapped in her cardigan, tea in one hand and notebook in the other. She looked out across her street, not searching, just seeing. The maple had turned orange early this year. Its leaves flickered like small flames against the graying sky. She flipped to a clean page. Title: Episode 2. The Apology You Don't Owe Them. Inside the house, the laptop dinged again. More emails, more names, more people still standing on what someone else tried to convince them was sinking ground. Marie smiled, not out of pride, out of recognition, because this was no longer the chapter after survival. It was the beginning of something entirely hers. The studio lights were warmer than Marie expected. Not harsh, not theatrical, just enough to remind her this wasn't a conversation over tea. This was a broadcast, a performance of presence. She sat across from the host of Hudson Valley Mornings, her hands folded in her lap, a lapel mic clipped discreetly to the collar of her blouse. Monica had helped her pick the top, slate blue, clean lines, soft on camera. Nina had smoothed her hair before they left the house. Between them, Marie had arrived looking not like a guest, but a woman prepared to be seen. The host, a younger woman with kind eyes and a stack of note cards she barely needed, welcomed viewers and offered a quick summary. Local woman starts nonprofit for caregivers after surviving cancer. A heartwarming headline, palatable and brief. But then she turned to Marie. "You didn't start the quiet backbone because you had nothing left to lose," the anchor said. "You started it because you realized what was still yours to give. Can you tell us about that moment?" Marie didn't rush her answer. She never did. "I think people misunderstand survival," she said. "They think it's the end of suffering. But for many of us, it's the beginning of a new kind of responsibility. To do something, say something, claim something back." She let her hands rest on her knees, palms open. "When I was sick, my son said I was basically done, that I wasn't worth the resources, and I realized if I let that comment define what came next, then maybe I was done, so I didn't let it. I rewrote the paper trail, I reclaimed my name, and I turned my remaining time into something measurable." The anchor blinked quickly, holding back a response. Marie leaned forward slightly. "I didn't waste time. I used it." There was a pause on the set. Then applause, not thunderous but genuine. Studio crew, camera operators, the few audience members they allowed for local tapings. A sound that felt both earned and unnecessary. Marie smiled softly, not because of the clapping, because of the silence that had come before it. By the time she and Monica returned home, her inbox had begun to swell. By nightfall, over 100 handwritten letters had arrived, some mailed in advance after the announcement, others hand-delivered by volunteers at the station. They came from everywhere: Albany, Shroon Lake, a correctional facility in Elmira, a halfway house in Kingston, a hospital in Buffalo. The ink bled. The handwriting varied. The contents did not. You made me feel seen. I've never heard someone say it like that before. You gave my pain a name, and that helped. That weekend, Marie hosted Nina and Monica for brunch. This time, no formal china, just mismatched mugs and blueberry scones on paper plates. Nina sat cross-legged on the couch, thumbing through one of the letters. "This one," she said suddenly, voice catching. "It's from a 15-year-old. She says, her mom takes care of her great-grandmother and hasn't smiled in weeks. She played the podcast while they were folding laundry and her mom laughed. She said, 'This woman gets it.' And then she cried." She handed the letter to Marie, who didn't read it right away. She just held it, quietly. "Do you ever regret cutting him out?" Nina asked, not with challenge, just curiosity. Marie's answer came without hesitation. He was already gone. I just stopped holding the door open for his return. 2 days later, Marie opened her email and paused. The sender, Trina Holt. The subject line, just one thing. She stared at it for 5 seconds, then clicked the checkbox beside it and selected Archive, not delete, not respond, just remove from view. That same afternoon, Derek called. "You might want a brace," he said. Marie exhaled. "What now?" "Shawn sent a formal request through a third-party mediator, wants to discuss revisions to the estate plan in light of your improved health and evolving family dynamics." Marie laughed, one short, unbothered note. "Has he confused estate law with emotional weather?" "Apparently," Derek replied. "Want me to answer for you?" "No," she said. "I'll write him one sentence." She hung up and opened a new document on her laptop. She typed, "The only thing more permanent than paperwork is the reason it was drawn." She printed it, folded it neatly, and slipped it into an envelope. Not to mail, just a file. Because some replies weren't for response, they were for record. Marie waited just outside the main entrance of the hospital, beneath the overhang where patients were usually wheeled out with discharge papers and soft blankets. It was early afternoon, the kind of gray sky that offered neither threat nor comfort, just a neutrality that left everything else sharper. She stood without leaning. No cane, no chair. Her arms were folded lightly across her chest, not defensive, just still. Shawn approached from the parking lot holding a small bouquet of white lilies and sunflowers, wrapped in cellophane, grocery store kind. He slowed when he saw her, uncertain, then picked up his pace like courage might arrive if he moved fast enough. Marie didn't reach for the flowers, didn't smile. She let the silence between them stretch until it was too obvious to ignore. "Thanks for meeting," Shawn said. Marie tilted her head, barely. "You asked for 5 minutes, that's what you'll have." Shawn shifted on his feet, holding the bouquet like it might explain something. He started, then reset. "I've been thinking about what I said, what I did, or didn't do, and I know I can't take it back, but I hoped maybe we could talk, really talk." Marie raised an eyebrow. "What exactly do you want, Shawn? Forgiveness? Amends? Or just access?" He flinched, but not visibly. "I want to make things right." She looked past him, toward the entrance where a man helped his wife into a wheelchair. The automatic doors opened and closed with practiced indifference. Marie brought her gaze back to Shawn. "Closure," she said carefully, "does not require reopening a wound." He held out the bouquet. "These are for you." She took them with both hands, turned them once, then set them gently on the nearby bench, unopened, untouched. "I'm not angry anymore," she said, "but that doesn't mean the door is open. I'm still your son." Marie didn't move. "That's not a guarantee of welcome. That's just a fact of origin." He said nothing. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. "I survived something that was supposed to take me out," she continued, "and in doing so, I got to decide who I carry forward." A pause. "You didn't make the list." Shawn blinked hard, eyes beginning to gloss over. Is there anything I can do?" Marie nodded once, slowly. "You can leave with grace, for once." She took a step toward the building, brushing past him without force. Behind her, the bouquet remained on the bench, the condensation slowly beating on the plastic wrap. Shawn didn't follow. Inside the sliding doors, the hospital air returned, antiseptic and slightly metallic. Marie didn't flinch. She just kept walking, steady, until the elevator came into view. Nina stood there already, holding a takeout cup and a folder under one arm. She smiled when she saw her. "How'd it go?" Nina asked. Marie pressed the elevator call button. "I gave him 5 minutes," she said. "He tried to buy Grace with supermarket lilies." Nina handed her the cup. Peppermint tea, no tag, just the steam curling upward in soft ribbons. "What did you do with the flowers?" "Left them for someone who needs pity more than I do." Nina laughed softly. Then her eyes met Marie's. "You okay?" Marie took a sip of the tea, letting the warmth settle at the back of her throat. "I'm better than okay," she said. "I'm conclusive." The elevator dinged open. As they stepped inside, Nina nudged her gently. "What's next?" Marie didn't answer right away. She just looked at her own reflection in the brushed steel doors. The woman staring back didn't look fragile. She looked finalized. The microphone blinked once, red, then green. Marie adjusted the headset over her ears and glanced at the script she'd printed earlier that morning. It sat on the desk beside a ceramic mug filled with half-cold peppermint tea. Outside the window, sunlight was already climbing into its mid-morning perch, soft and clean against the glass. She reached for the record button and pressed it. "Welcome to the final episode of The Quiet Backbone," she said, her voice clear, measured. "Today's theme is legacy, not the one you leave in bank accounts or boxes, but the kind you live in someone else's spine." She paused, letting the silence carry the weight it deserved. Marie turned the page slowly. "A long time ago, someone told me I was done, that I wasn't worth the effort, the resources, the time. They said it in a hospital while I was connected to tubes and trying to believe I still mattered." Another pause. This one longer. "I believed them, for about 3 days. Then her voice softened, almost like she was reading a lullaby. "Legacy," she said, "isn't what you leave. It's who you free." A gentle knock on the door. Marie didn't stop recording. The door creaked open. Nina stepped in quietly and placed a fresh cup of coffee on the table, nodding once before stepping back out. Marie smiled toward her retreating footsteps. She leaned back into the mic. "And freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like walking away without slamming the door. Sometimes it's a rewritten will, a letter to a granddaughter, a refusal to explain your worth one more time." She closed the script and exhaled. "Thank you," she said, "for listening, for seeing each other, for staying." Then she clicked, "Stop." Later that afternoon, the kitchen was filled with warmth and the light clink of coffee spoons against ceramic. Monica poured from the French press while Nina set out the good scones, orange zest and cranberry still warm from the oven. "To the woman who wasted nothing," Monica said, raising her cup. "Not her time, not her voice, not even her spite." They all laughed. Marie clinked her mug gently against theirs. "To beginning again," she added. "By choice." After they left, Marie sat at the table alone, laptop open, a single document ready to send. Final amendment, distribution of nonprofit oversight and caregiver fund. She reviewed it once. Everything was there. Nina as successor director, Monica as advisory chair, a clause ensuring Lily would be offered mentorship if she ever came asking. Not a door forced open, just one left unlocked. Marie hit send, then filed the physical copy into her estate drawer and sealed the file with a single note. Final. With intention. By mid-afternoon, she stepped outside, her shoes soft on the sidewalk, a small cloth bag over her shoulder. No destination urgent, no companion needed. She walked the 4 blocks to the park slowly, breathing in the light hum of a spring that hadn't rushed to arrive. The air smelled like cut grass and thawing earth. A dog barked in the distance. A jogger passed and nodded. Marie returned it with a smile. At the far end of the park, the bench waited, worn wood, iron arms, facing east where the sun would later dip low and gold across the playground. She sat down, hands in her lap, gaze lifted, no list in her pocket, no headphones in her ears, just presence. The sky stretched wide above her, a hush of promise in every ray, A moment later, footsteps padded across the mulch. Mateo, 5 years old, cheeks pink, a plastic spade in one hand, stopped beside the bench. "Hi, Miss Marie," he said, breathless. "Want to help plant flowers?" Marie turned to him, smiling not with surprise, but with a sense of something gently, perfectly timed. "Of course," she said, rising slowly. "Let's plant something that stays." They walked toward the flower beds together, Mateo already explaining where the sun hit best, where the worms lived. Marie knelt beside him, hands in the soil. The warmth of the ground didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a handoff, and as the breeze picked up around them, carrying the scent of lavender and damp bark, Marie looked up at the sky and whispered the line that would outlive her. "They said I was done. I decided I'd only just started."